Welcome to the BC Wine Show. I'm Marnie Martin with Vista Wine Group, and I'm interviewing some of BC's top, most successful winemakers and industry pros on how and why they do what they do and what they're up to next. So grab yourself a glass of wine, and I'll see you on the inside. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BC Wine Show. I'm Marnie Martin with Vista Wine Group, and today's guest has had a career in the spirit and wine industry that spanned over 15 years. He founded Rock Creek Draft Cider with Big Rock Brewery and has branded wine with some of Rock's royalty, the Rolling Stones. Please help me welcome Jeff Harder from ExNihilo Vineyards in beautiful Lake Country, BC.
Well, here we are.
Here we are.
Well, it's nice to see your face. I've looked you up, of course, on the websites and things like that. So here, as I'm sure you did a little study on us as well. So
I did. Yes, yeah. I did for sure. Now, I know it's been a really weird time over the last few months where we've had to do a lot of adjusting and changing. And of course, we talked a little bit about your virtual wine tastings, which you've had to implement due to the COVID situation, and that's been incredibly entertaining. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Jeff and Dakoa's virtual wine tastings, you absolutely have to check it out on their website. It's fun, it's off the cuff, and they taste some great wine, and you never know where they're going to do it next. So that's the best part of it. You guys are so funny.
Well, we wanted to do something a little bit different and, not make wine so stuffy. If I go to I've been doing it, over the years, I've been watching, and here's how you open a bottle of wine. Here's how you pour the wine. Here's how you smell the wine. You know what? We wanted to peel back the layers of our business and we're like anybody else. I'm not, Mr. Jones is not on the property today. And, he's at his office tower in Toronto or wherever in New York, or, you know what? I'm a farmer. My wife's a farmer. We're just normal people living our passion.
Yeah, it's great. Well, what I love about that is that it's so approachable, and you guys are funny, and you have your bloopers in there, and it's it's fun to watch, and it does really endear you to what you're doing at the winery because it is not stuffy at all. It's very approachable. It's very friendly, welcome, come on in. We make mistakes too. We fall off our paddleboard, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, that's good. I'm glad you recognize that. And
I know that the name ExNihilo means something to you, but a lot of our viewers probably don't know exactly what it means. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got into the wine business and what the meaning of ExNihilo is and what that all envelops at the winery.
Absolutely, Marnie. It's basically a love story is where it's all started. And the name is a Latin word for out of nothing. And sometimes I jokingly say that it referred to my pocketbook when we started this venture, and now I'm in for a name change, XXX Nihilo. But that's for me. No, it's actually a very famous sculpture. And it dawns over the front facade of the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. And it was commissioned to a gentleman by the name of Frederick Hart in about 1974. I started dating a young lady, and I wanted to take her down to Napa, California. She was actually working in the wine business for another winery here in the Okanagan. And I had this secret passion for wine because my brother and his wife-to-be at that time was in wine. And this young lady and I have, of course, shared a passion on this side of the border for wine. And so it was then I thought, let's take this girl down to Napa and meet the family and tour some wine regions and areas around Napa. And we took a day trip into San Francisco and from Napa, and being the romantic kind of Rico Suave guy that I am, I thought I'd take her to a art gallery. In this art gallery, we came across the working sculpture of ExNihilo. Now, the original one stands about 18 feet high by 20 feet wide. over the front facade. And this working sculpture was probably not much bigger than a sheet of plywood, about 4x8. And I saw this sculpture and I fell in love with it. And my hair stood up on my head, as it still does today, and little goosebumps. And this young lady kept going out throughout the gallery looking at the rest of the art. It was a large gallery. And I stood there for about 20 minutes just looking at this beautiful piece of artwork. And what happened is she came back and she says, "You haven't moved." And I said, "No, this is beautiful." And she says, "Well, let's go for some lunch." And as I turned and walked away, I said, "One day when we own a winery, we're going to call it ExNihilo." Again, meaning from nothing. So here we are today. Of course, we were married not too long after, and we started our journey on wine. So that's where the name comes from. And again, our relationship, as most do, start from out of nothing, and they grow into something. And Dakoa as well, she loved the interpretation of the name and how it refers to the grapes coming alive every year from their dormant stage and producing, a lot of bountiful fruit. Yeah,
what a great story.
That's a story. And so we kind of traipsed up and down the valley and looking for property. And it was when we traveled north outside of Kelowna up into Lake Country to visit Grey Monk and Arrowleaf that had just opened. In fact, we went to the grand opening to say hello, and right across the street was a for sale sign, and it was 10 acres at that time, and there was some fruit trees on it, and an old house that wasn't being lived on, and an old painted sign that said "House for Sale," and along with cherries and peaches and stuff. So we called the number, and we weren't sure if it was the cherries and peaches for sale or the whole property, and it was the property that was for sale. So we jumped in, and here we are today with our partners, Michael and Janet Azadi. So.
That's fantastic. And so now you started out with 10 acres, but now you have obviously expanded that, and you also have other land that doesn't actually exist at the ExNihilo. So tell us a little bit about where your other vineyards are and how much land in total you have.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I have to keep thinking as we grow every year. There's more, it seems to be more and more, and we're blessed that we live in a part of the world where we have a big valley, and it's, it stretches quite a distance now from the border right up into the Shuswaps. They're growing grapes, but we have 20 acres right on site now at the estate. And on that estate, the fruit is Pinot Noir. We have some Riesling, Pinot Gris, and some Chardonnay. And then we farm a site up at the Rise in Vernon. We call it our Rise site. And it's a beautiful piece of property. I have to think about this now. We've been farming that piece for about 7 years now. And some of the most beautiful Pinot Noir comes off of that site. And there's also some more Riesling there and a little bit of Gewürztraminer. And then Michael and Janet Azadi, our new partners, have just bought 42 acres just south of us here in McKinley Landing, where we've just planted close to 12 acres of the 42, and there's plans to do another 12 to 15 acres, maybe a little bit more. We're still working on a couple of phases with that. And Michael and Janet plan to build the winery there, but there'll be some fruit there that we're farming right now. And then we kind of hop all the way down the valley right to the border. I work with some strategic growers. We have some long-term contracts that we've been working with some growers for some time now. Wonderful, wonderful farming families. We work with 3 growers. We call them family. They've been in the industry a long time, all 3 of them. And that goes right to the border. Some of our Cab and our Merlot, I say it's the closest fruit to Napa Valley as you're going to get, because it's right at the border. So.
Amazing, amazing. I know you also have more than one brand happening over there as well. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure that there's a lot of consumers that see the ExNihilo product on the shelves. And then of course you've got Chaos, and then you also have the Black Star line. So maybe talk a little bit about those wines and why they have individual different branding.
You know, ExNihilo is our home and our estate brand. Chaos just started kind of by default. We opened a little bit of a bistro, a boutique bistro, if you will, at the winery. We thought it was time. You know, Grey Monk did such a, you know, who's our neighbor here, did a great job with their restaurant for years and years, and they filled it up. And then we'd have people coming into our facility saying, you know, do you have any food here? And of course, you know, a number of years back, about 7 years ago, we didn't. And it's, well, maybe we should start doing something. You know, how hard can it be, you know, to have a little restaurant?
Yeah.
So the name came about, we were trying to name this place. We didn't just want to call it ExNihilo's Bistro. And so my wife and I were sitting down at the dinner table one night, and it was a couple of weeks before the bistro was to open. And we were kind of semi-bickering on what the name should be. And our oldest son stepped in and said, "What are you working on here?" Like, we said, "A name for the restaurant, and we're opening in 2 weeks." And he said, "It's just chaos around here always." And we looked at him, we said, "That's the name, Chaos. Thank you very much." So here we are today with Chaos Bistro. And yep, we started a little brand of wine. You know, anything we had a little bit left over, you know, that was in the barrel. We had our winemaking team put it together, a red, and we had, you know, a little bit of Pinot Gris left over, a little bit of Riesling. So we made a proprietary blend, if you will. And here we are today with the Chaos line. And then our reps see it and they go, we were just selling at the restaurant or at the bistro, and, you know, 100 cases a year. And then our reps wanted some that we could go into the market and have more of a restaurant series wines. And so we did, and it just kind of taken off from there. And
Nice.
So that's how the Chaos line came about. And then our friends, one of the larger stores, Liquor Depot, was looking for a proprietary kind of brand that they could position as their kind of preferred brand. And they really liked our wines. And I had a pretty good relationship with them, and they came to us and said, "Hey, we don't care what the brand is called, you're creative, come up with something, would you do it?"
Yeah.
And we'll support it. So that was where Black Star came about. And at the time I was, you know, really thinking about, you know, us as farmers, and, you know, some of my roots where I grew up, and my brother and my partner at the time, Jay Paulson, was a farming, and we wanted to pay tribute. We did a lot of business in Alberta, where we're from, and we thought we'd pay tribute to a lot of the farming communities, you know, in Canada, and, you know, primarily Western Canada, where we launched this wine. And I always looked at the farmers as our, you know, they're out there, they're our Black Stars that, you know, people don't see them a lot. We're out there working in the fields and on the farms, and bringing in the harvest of whatever. And really we got to be thankful and grateful for the country we live in, and the farming that we do have here, from our beef farmers and our grain farmers, and of course our grape farmers. So we came up with a line called Black Star to kind of pay tribute to them.
Yeah, a lot of the things that end up happening often in the industry, whatever industry you're in, happen sort of organically. And so you're just sort of going with the flow, and as things progress, you go with it, and it sometimes turns out great, and other times you have to, you know, take a left turn, right? So that's just really brand new. I think just last week you opened up the Chaos Bistro again, obviously with limited capacity seating. And then you're also doing what you're calling signature tasting experiences. And is that different than what you were doing before? Is that something new that's come with COVID, or is that just the only thing you're offering right at the current moment because of the COVID situation?
Well, it's kind of wrapped up into a lot. As you know, Marnie, that, you know, we have family in Napa Valley, and Dakota and I have spent a lot of time down there, and like Napa Valley, that we always wanted to try to differentiate up here and get into doing sit-down tastings, which is very common down there. You make a reservation, you come in, and usually it's parties of 4 to 6 people or 2 to 6, and that's the COVID rules now. So we fall in that guideline. But do kind of a sit-down tasting. The wines will be pre-poured for you, and you have options to either do an all-white tasting, an all-red tasting, or a mix. And we have, placemats that are set down with all the tasting notes in front of you. And then, of course, our team members, from a socially distance away from the table, do tell you the ExNihilo story, that similar to the one I just told you about our name, and ask questions about the wine, et cetera, et cetera. So
perfect. One of the things on the note of COVID, one of the things that I noticed that you guys are doing, which is really incredible, is the hashtag We Stand Together. So tell me a little bit about where that came from. I love the concept of that, and I think it's super timely for what we're dealing with in our world right now. But it's a lovely concept. So tell us about that.
Thank you. That actually came from my brother, and he called me up one day, and just how in his world everybody's his wine club members and the customers who were really sticking beside and doing lots of online orders, as ours were too. And so we were sharing back and forth, and there was a company down in the US, a clothing company, that came out with an idea to support and have their customers and themselves were supporting restaurants and other companies, not just restaurants, but to support any business that either our customers or their families were a part of, where we could kind of extend any type of awareness to their business. We're very blessed. We've got a very large wine club that have been just amazing and supportive of us. It was just about giving back and trying to reach out through social media and supporting their business. And we've just started this. So you can go to our website. Up at the top, it's We Stand Together, and click on it, and you can enter in your business. You can enter in a family member's business or your neighbor down the street, and just tell us a little bit about that business. And we're going to have a page that reaches out to our social media to say, hey, maybe you could support this business as well. And so we're kind of the vehicle, if you will, to let other people to network business, basically, and keep it local.
I love that. That's just such a great idea. And I was really pleased to see that you guys had implemented that.
I'm glad you saw it. We just literally put it up like 2 days ago, and Nancy's still working on some of the ergonomics and logistics of how that's going to look on our social media, but we're getting close, and you can go in there and start filling up your businesses now. So I encourage you to, if you're watching this, please go and do it, and we're going to try to support you the best we can.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about your wine club. Let's dive into that a little bit and let people know, if they do join the wine club, what kind of, benefits are involved with that, and what they can actually access through that.
What that looks like is we have 3 levels. We have a bronze level where you get 15% off. We have a silver level, which you have 17% off. And at the gold member, you have a 20% off. And then we have a platinum membership that I can talk about in a minute, but those 3 levels have 3 shipments a year. And one of the biggest benefits to our wine club, again, is you get to pick your wines. And I think that's important, that, I've seen a lot of wine club members out there, and right or wrong, if you don't, we're sending you Riesling this month, and, you might not drink Riesling. So why would I want to be a part of that club? If you come to our facility, you'll see that we have very comfortable lounge in the winery where you can kick back and have some wood fire pizzas. And we have a beautiful new decks that we've built overlooking Lake Okanagan, and little private areas where you can sit and enjoy with your guests or your friends or family a nice glass of wine, enjoy some food in a vineyard setting. So Dacoa has kind of coined it, you know, we're the modern day country club, you know, minus the golf course, we've got a vineyard. It's a beautiful setting. And, you know, we've had people from Italy and from the wine regions of Italy. We've had people from the wine regions of France that have come to us and said, you know, this rivals any, you know, our areas, and you know they're the old guard, Italy and France.
Well, I'm hoping I'm going to get a chance to come up and see the facility in person very soon, but that sounds like an amazing place to go and visit and enjoy some beautiful BC wine.
Well, thank you. You know, appreciate it, Marnie. We, you know, again, we're very grateful and blessed to be living in this part of the world. And we, as Dacoa and I said when we built this place from the beginning, and it was about, you know, which is almost like, I think 17 years ago when we found the property now. And we've been basically producing wine since 2005 was our first vintages that we got out. Been around a little bit now, and but, you know, it's about place. And again, it's really an extension of our home and who we are when you visit ExNihilo.
I was just going to say, I would be remiss while we're having this conversation if I don't ask you about your work with the Rolling Stones.
Oh, wow. That's a story that still surfaces from time to time. And a lot of years ago when I was a young fella, I was probably the biggest fan of the Rolling Stones. And they ended up coming, they were on tour, oh God, back in 2000, I think is what it was. And my brother called us up, Dacoa and I, and said, it's time to come down to Napa and spend a week down with us. The Rolling Stones are coming to Pac Bell Park in San Francisco, and we need to get down there. So we did and had a wonderful concert. And my brother was very gracious and he got us box seats, and he and Colleen just, you know, set the stage for a wonderful Rolling Stones experience. And about 14 months later, they were coming again, and James called and said, get down here, the Stones are back, and we've got the box seat again, and come on down. So when we got there, it kind of surprised us, said, oh, we didn't get the box seat again. I think the Rolling Stones wanted to get it back for some VIPs or something. And so we got it basically up front row center seats, and they invited us kind of backstage for a dinner. And that's when we were served some Rolling Stones wine. And I sat there and go, why didn't we think about this? So I came up with an idea, and I thought I better phone the Rolling Stones to let them know. And it was like, well, how in the hell do you phone Mick Jagger and talk to him about, you know, a wine brand and or extension to his wine brand that he already had? So I spent about 3 months researching and trying to find phone numbers and phoning all over the world and emailing at that time. But I persisted, and I kept going for about another 6 months, and my wife thought I was crazy. But I'd phone, and finally one day I got a call back, and there was a gentleman said, are you looking for the fella that's looking after Mick Jagger's wine? And I said, yes, I am. Thanks for returning my call. And he said, well, call this number. And the guy's name is Marty. So I call this number, and I get a phone answering machine. Message is that you've reached the offices of Martin, Ehrlichman and Associates. Please leave a message. So I did. I politely said that my name was Jeff, and understood that he looked after the wine for Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, and would he kindly call me? I had an idea. And finally, after about another 2 months of leaving messages, I left kind of a message that was a little bit to the point to say, what kind of business do you have here? I've left probably close to, 60 phone calls, and you haven't called me back. And I had this idea, and what it is ice wine. I'd like to do an ice wine with the Rolling Stones, and I had a great name picked out and everything, and would you please call me? So finally one day I get a call on my phone, and so I took the call, and a young lady's voice came on and said, is this Mr. Jeff Harder? I said, yes, it is. And she says, I have Mr. Martin Ehrlichman on the line. One moment, please. And all of a sudden, in a very gruff voice, "Hello, Jeff." And I said, "Yes." And "It's Marty Lichtman. How are you, baby?" And I went, "Whoa." And I said, "Geez, Marty, I've been trying to get a hold of you." And he cut me off really fast. Yeah. I've been trying to set up tours and I've been busy. I'm sorry. And I hear you want to do an ice wine. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Is it expensive?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Good, come and see me," and hung up. That was it. And I flew down to LA where I met Marty. And that's the rest of the story, basically.
Nice.
Turned out that he was Barbra Streisand's manager and friends with the Rolling Stones and had a passion for wine. So he did this little side project with Mick, and we got to actually do an ice wine. And then out of Napa, I did a brand called Satisfaction out of my brother's and his partner's facilities.
Awesome. Well, I won't keep you too much longer. This has been a really fun chat. I knew we would have a lot of ground to cover today because you've got lots of interesting stories and you guys are doing some super great things up at the winery. But my last question that I ask all my guests is, what's in your glass? And that is your favorite BC wine that is not being produced at ExNihilo.
No, I've always been a big fan of 8th generation with their Rieslings. I think they do a wonderful, wonderful job. So their Riesling in a glass is one that I've always enjoyed. And if I was going to pick a red right now, God, I call him Grumpy Bill Ager at Fairview. It's one of my favorite wine makers, and Bill makes some outstanding wines. And I love his, Cab Francs, and that's a couple that I jump into right off the bat. So
thank you so much. Well, I sure appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to sit and have a chat with me. It's been great to see you face to face. Like I say, we've spoken on the phone so many times and never actually seen each other face to face. So this is, the next best thing, at least.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to having you out. I know you have some family in the neighborhood, so we won't let you come out without stopping in. I know that to be true. And we'll look forward to seeing you, Marnie. And thank you for thinking about ExNihilo. And, I know going forward, you're going to be a part of our team in a capacity of our repping us out on the island. So we really look forward to that. Thank you for recognizing our Stand Together page, and we're going to really start jumping on that and trying to make a difference in people's lives where we can support and try to give back where we can, and that's really important for us. So
and I'm going to make sure that I put a link up into the description on the YouTube video, as well as it'll come up on the video as well, so you'll have a link to find that page and to find all of the beautiful ExNihilo wines on your website. And if you have not tried ExNihilo wines yet, don't hesitate to look for them in your local store or to ask for them if you don't see them. So definitely worth something, worth a try for sure. And I really look forward to chatting with you again soon. So we'll do a little update maybe in a few months and see how things are going once COVID's over.
Success with your program. This is exciting. And again, I think it's just an extension of what Nicole and I were doing with their YouTube little channel. And what you're doing is getting into the, the back of the winery, if you will, and just meet the people behind the scenes. And we'll be here for you always. And thanks for sharing our story and helping us as well. So
take care and stay well, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Marnie. Okay, cheers.
Cheers. And now, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question for a future guest or a comment, please put it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and the big red subscribe button right down below. Thanks for joining us today on the BC Wine Show. And until next time, stay well, be kind, and enjoy responsibly.